Welcome to the FAFSA Leadership Lounge, where we are going to dive into the policy shaping the work of Florida school leaders. I'm Michelle White, Executive Director of the Florida Association of School Administrators.
And I'm Jessica Jana Seawick, lobbyist for FAFSA and several school districts across Florida.
So we're going to start this episode with some major national news. Last Wednesday, senior White House and Education Department officials laid out plans to return education authority to individual states and redistribute oversight and administrative of education department programs to other federal agencies through interagency agreements.
So, in simple terms, the federal government is looking to disband the Department of Education and give most of education authority to the states, with the exception of a few programs that it's planning to move to other federal departments.
And we have been talking about this for a few months, certainly almost a year, but the Department of Labor will welcome the Office of Elementary and Secondary Education Programs, and then the Office of Post-Secondary Education Institution-Based Programs as well.
And education programs or indication education programs will be administered by the Department of the Interior, and international education and foreign language programs will be under the Department of State.
And lastly, our child care access means parents in school, and the foreign medical accreditation will be housed in the Department of Health and Human Services.
So there are a lot of moves that are planned to be occurring. And the question is, why did it happen? And what is it they're trying to achieve? Well, federal officials have recently mentioned some of the reasons why they want to do this. They say that they want to eliminate red tape. They said that the department functions primarily as a pass-through, as a grant maker, and argued that shifting the programs across agencies would streamline but not eliminate the funding. And they have as a point that the federal shutdown is proof of this matter. They said, look at this, the last 43-day government shutdown, during which less than 90% of education staff were furloughed, saying that it was non-essential to core school operations.
That's right. So another area that they talked about is, of course, parental empowerment and school choice, where those education department officials reiterated the administration's focus on choice policies and its view that states and parents should lead the decision making. And then the last piece of what they've been sharing is around workforce alignment. And the rationale for anchoring elementary, secondary, and post-secondary programs at the Department of Labor Center is focused on college to career pathways, workforce readiness, and closer alignment to labor market needs. So officials have also made it really clear that other interagency agreements may follow, and that congressional engagement is considered to be ongoing. Of course, we'll keep you updated of more changes as they're made.
And I'm sure there will be quite a few along the way, because this is a pretty major undertaking, just moving these key parts of the agency to other agencies. So moving along, our fourth week of interim committee weeks was last week, and it was a busy one. On Tuesday, the House got things started with the Student Academic Success Subcommittee. It was a relatively quick meeting. They heard HB 127, which is a bill that would require instruction on cursive writing. So that was heard, and the bill was passed unanimous.
Yeah, and much of the committee even talked about, why this would be important. And again, to your point, unanimous approval, both Republicans and Democrats supported it.
Yeah.
That committee was really a nice start for the week. Of course, things got a little bit more serious very quickly. So later on Tuesday afternoon, the Senate Pre-K through 12 Education Committee met with a presentation and discussion on student absences. So although the attendance policy for schools is established by district school boards, the current guidelines for non-attendance is 5 unexcused absences in a calendar month, or 10 unexcused absences within 90 days.
So this seems certainly like a lot of absences when you hear that, but Chris Curran from the University of Florida Policy Research Center did provide an interesting example, which kind of enlightened everyone, I think, to how difficult this attendance issue is really to try to really wrap our minds around. He told a story of a student who'd been absent one day the first month of school for a doctor's appointment. The next month, the student was sick for 2 days and missed a day due to a religious observance. In the third month, the student took a Friday off to travel for the long weekend. And then on the fourth month, they were sick for a day and then had to go to a funeral for a family member for another day.
So it seems pretty normal, of why this student would be missing, but the student was on track to be considered chronically absent. And for the 23-24 school year, 31% of students in Florida were considered chronically absent.
Which is just such a huge number. It was very shocking. He shared in committee a look at the entire United States. And, there really is obviously a variance from states that are in the teens of the number of percentage of students that are chronically absent, all the way up to some in the 40s, which is obviously not great. So we're a little the upper half of the middle, I would say, in Florida. The main thing that we've seen is since COVID, there have certainly been a lot of changes in parental attitudes, I think, and maybe the kids too, when we did a lot of virtual learning. And then some of the normal issues that were there before, which are transportation challenges, parents and students that are just disengaged, mental health concerns, safety concerns, all those things that were around prior to COVID that have just seemingly been exacerbated.
And Collier County Superintendent Dr. Leslie Riccadelli, whose district has the lowest absenteeism rate in the state, explained that the systems in her district uses to have students show up to school. She stressed that consistent district-wide messaging is the key to keeping absenteeism rates low, from communications regarding expectations to social media campaign messages. Collier has kept their students, quote, on time all day, every day.
So following that meeting, we had some of the most intense discussions that we heard this week in both the Senate and the House pre-K-12 appropriations subcommittees, where they examined audit findings for the DOE and both scholarship funding organizations.
And that is right. So an audit on the Florida DOE's Family Empowerment Scholarship for the 24-25 school year found a myriad of accountability challenges, with millions of dollars in overspending and no way to effectively recoup those funds, as well as a lack of oversight and delays in scholarship payments.
So an example of some of the things that they found was almost 300 accounts for unique ability scholarships that had balances in excess of the $50,000 cap. So 300 of those accounts were over the cap. It also found that the Florida Department of Education did not cross-check students that were receiving money from AAA, which was one of the two scholarship funding organizations in the state, to make sure students weren't attending public school. And all cross-checks by the department were volunteer surveys sent to parents. So you can imagine, we know all of our principals know what it's like when you send something home with parents, and even the stuff that is required is difficult to get back, let alone when something's a voluntary effort.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there was even some question about the $50,000 cap and how does that get to be so high? And part of that is when the parents, whether they're using it in a private school or a homeschool for those unique ability scholarships, is that not everything is spent. And so it has built up over the last many years that particular scholarship has been in place. So the numbers have just continued to grow exponentially. The audit findings have again reinforced lawmakers' central worry that the scholarship system isn't keeping pace with its rapid growth. And as a result, it is mismanaging taxpayer dollars. The audit included recommendations, including separating the scholarship money in the FEFP from the money directed towards school districts. The FEFP currently is how the state distributes funds to school districts equitably and relies primarily on student enrollment. But Representative Jenna Parsons Maleka from the Fort Myers area. She is the Republican who chairs the House Pre-K-12 Budget Subcommittee, said that a move like that would be, quote, a huge mistake, that it would end universal school choice in Florida, and that it's not likely to fix the problem. The problem isn't the funding model, she said. The problem is in the implementation.
And interestingly, her comments are in contrast to what the Senate seems to be planning during their meeting after they discussed the audit, which, of course, same kind of discussion as you might imagine surrounding the issues there. But then they did have Senator Gates speak to a particular bill that he is going to be filing, sounding like it's going to be relatively similar to one that he had last year, trying to make some changes to this program. And one of the things he mentioned was specifically the Senate's plan is to create a specific line in the education budget strictly for vouchers instead of lumping them in with public schools, as is the current practice. So obviously, while there seems to be agreement that there's a problem, we're not in complete agreement with how to fix it just yet.
That's right. And so we also have some late breaking news, really, here as we're recording this. There's a couple of bills that were filed, like as we're getting ready to have this conversation. So one of those bills is,
so these are kind of ones that we saw last year too. So, as we've spoken, I think many times in the podcast, if things die in Tallahassee, that doesn't mean they're dead forever. They're just going to come back. The first has been a major priority, if not the major priority for the Senate president. The bill number this year will be Senate Bill 250, and that is his Rural Renaissance bill. And for those of you that have been listening to us for a while, you probably recall us talking about it. It's a very comprehensive bill that touches everything from education to healthcare to even some transportation issues. The goal is primarily to provide assistance to rural communities in Florida. But then we also saw Senate Bill 630, which is the Administrative Efficiencies Bill, formerly known as DREG.
yes,
The third year for the third year. So we had the initial DREG, which did pass. And then subsequently, they tried to get some of the things that were in the initial DREG bill that didn't make it to the finish line. They kind of refiled that the next year in a bill. Obviously, it didn't pass last year, but it's back this year. So
that's right. Well, I'm sure there'll be more to come. And we really appreciate the Senate's at least looking at it as flexibilities for schools and districts to try to make sure that we're providing the highest quality educational opportunities for kids and doing that in the best way possible. So I'm excited to see what happens with those as we have supported them in the past. So in some other news, we have some exciting stories from around the state to share again this week. So news reports are showing that Orange County Public Schools is planning to renovate the historic Cherokee School campus to a new arts and technology high school focused on cinematic arts, sound design, and emerging media. The school is expected to serve about 650 students and is slated to open in the 28-29 school year. This adds a creative and future-focused educational option for downtown Orlando, which is a strong win both for arts education and career tech training.
Absolutely. And in Miami-Dade, they are embracing the AI in the classroom. Reports that educators are now integrating AI tools for lesson planning, quizzes, and writing prompts. The district has launched an AI institute to train teachers, and leaders are emphasizing that they aren't just using AI, but teaching students how to critically assess AI responses, which is a forward-thinking move in student digital literacy. This ties into a discussion that we are actually anticipating for the final set of committee weeks December in the House. This week, the Speaker of the House announced that December 8th through 12th, which is our final committee week, will be the legislature's first ever artificial intelligence week. And they will be dedicating that entire round of committee meetings to talking about the impact of AI in each of those different silos. So obviously for us, it'll be education, but in healthcare, in transportation, and all the other myriad of issues that they look at. So here, the speaker urged committee chairs to lead the conversations on the both potentially the positive and the negative impacts of AI, from economic development to any kind of risk there may be in education, emotional well-being, and any long-term policy implications.
And it'll definitely be an interesting week of meetings for sure, as we know that AI is looming large in so many of our schools and districts. And right now, we want to say thank you so much for listening. It's a week of being thankful. We hope that
right.
you have the most amazing Thanksgiving, and definitely stay tuned for next Monday's episode with a very special topic. So we appreciate you. We look forward to continuing to serve and support leaders across this great state. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Leadership Lounge podcast presented by the Florida Association of School Administrators. Today's podcast was hosted by Michelle White and Jessica Janasiewicz. Podcast was produced by Jeff Willoughby. Original musical recordings by David Higgins. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. New episodes are released each Monday. For show topics, suggestions, questions, or comments, please email communications@facet.net. We hope you enjoyed the show.